we got some, there's a whole underlying power which doesn't exist hardly anywhere else in the world, Jewish or not Jewish. Yeah, but as soon as they talk, it never got better. He was sick, and he almost, at the time, what the people said is after speaking with the doctors, or the doctors themselves said, the biggest moifis of the whole Nisias till Tavshan Lamed Ches was that the Rebbe recovered to whatever extent, even before Chodesh Kislev. The fact that the Rebbe survived. But that will what's so special about Chodesh Kislev today? That's question number one. I made I'm in school, I'm in high school. So I once made, about 10, 15, I made a list of different things which took place between Lamed Ches and Nun Dalid. The effect, the impact, certain things which we define to a very large part of our Chabad identity in things that we do, or we know we should be doing, and our kids learning about, has to do with the whole lineage of the Chabad houses. The whole lineage of Likutei Sichos, about 70% probably were edited by the Rebbe after Rosh Chodesh Kislev. 95% at least. I never did the arithmetic accurately, but I'm sure it's over 95% of Mugadik and Maimorim were Muga after Rosh Chodesh Kislev. And do you ever hear Tzivos Hashem? Sefer Chodesh. And what about Limer Rambam? These are all things, all of them, and they are central themes and central things, gem, a lot of this type of, there's things that have happened after then, and Didan Notzach, which maybe is the most important of all, because the Rebbe was protecting, but he was showing us what the transmission of Nesias is from one generation to the next, even for a Rebbe that you don't see. It was maybe the most relevant of all Yom Tovim, it's Hey Tevis, that's a gift. It's a gift that you got from his Nagdim. I met a Satmar guy in London once, in the real heavy years. And after the Talucha, with the whole pogrom, everything. So I said, you know what we do now? We do 5 Taluchas a week instead of 5 a year. So he says, the Satmar gets the credit then. He knew it's a mitzvah. I said, yeah, and Haman gets the credit for Purim. Anyway, so, but the Rebbe showed us direction, and many, many other things that are there from after Lamed Ches. So it is something, even that we had those years that the Rebbe Begashmis in this world. I want to tell you a story. When this question first came to me, was when a literature guy asked me, what's Rosh Chodesh Kislev? I was going to, it was Yoel Gans, Yoel Gans, from the Williamsburg boys, whose son, he was a shaliach in Miami, he was still a bocha. It must be 25 years ago maybe. And he knew me, and he invited me to come to Miami to Farbrengen. He put up a thing there, 350 people maybe, packed out shul. And he had the doctor who actually was the first one that treated the Rebbe and spoke on Shmini Atzeres. And he spoke about how powerful the Rebbe was. In terms, he says he's used to it. He was like a top cardiologist. He says everybody, all they know about is themselves surviving that moment. And with the Rebbe, you saw his powerful concern for the community. He said, let him go home, whatever it was, all the different things. This doctor spoke then. Rabbi Shapiro spoke. all the Shapiro cousins. And then I was on the plane, and there's a guy, a very trim, nicely, an old guy, about maybe 75, he looked like. Black suit, trim appearance. He looked like a guy who looks after himself. And obviously Litvish, and I wasn't going to get into a conversation with him. But when we, at the airport, the bags were delayed about 45 minutes. So he came over to me. And he said, you know, I'm here for a bar mitzvah of a grandson or bris of a great-grandson, some kind of a family simcha. Do you live here? I said, yes, I live in England. He said, what are you doing here? Vacation? I said, I'm going to speak tonight in the Lubavitcher Yeshiva on the occasion of Rosh Chodesh Kislev tonight. So he says, what's Rosh Chodesh Kislev? So in my mind, it flashed through that second. What am I going to tell him? It's 5-10 years after. The guy everyone knows Lubavitchers are crazy anyhow. My mom was good. Somebody once came by us. There were plenty of guys who missed Shacharis. And in the England, the Shkia in the summer is about 9 o'clock at night, 9:30. And after Mincha, at about 8, 9 o'clock, they made minyanim for Kriyas HaTorah, those who missed Monday and Thursday. So a guy comes in, and a lot of Litviks, a lot of them stop, the Velta She'ivim come into the shul, and they see a minyan for Kriyas HaTorah at 8 o'clock at night. So they ask, is it a minyan Chabad? They don't believe anything about Chabad. So we said, no, a plane came today from America. So I told the guy, how can you say a lie? He says, 25 planes came from America. Anyway, so this guy says, what's Rosh Chodesh Kislev? And I said to myself, what am I going to tell him? He said, oh, in a second, how to answer him right away. I just said, I'll tell him straight out. I said, the Lubavitcher Rebbe recovered in 1977 and went home. And we celebrated. And I was scared of what he's going to tell me, but I figured it'll be good, have a good, a little dialogue. He said to me these exact words: a Yom Tov for the Lubavitcher Rebbe is a Yom Tov for Klal Yisrael. And to me, this was a lesson about, he wasn't talking about Rosh Chodesh Kislev. He was talking about the Rebbe's contribution to post-Holocaust Judaism, or to the 20th century Bichlal. He said, a Yom Tov for the Lubavitcher Rebbe is a Yom Tov for Klal Yisrael. And I said, what's your story? What do you know about the Rebbe? He said, what do I know about the Rebbe? I was in Yechidus. I said, you mind, anybody tell me they're in Yechidus? I met many people, I asked them, just tell me one single thing the Rebbe told you. So tell me as follows. He's a survivor. From his family, I think he's the only one that survived. Litvish. And he went to the Mira Yeshiva. And he spent his whole life. Now he's already retired. But he learned there, he got smicha there, and then he went to work there, I think administrative position. He worked in the office of the Mira Yeshiva his whole working life. And then he got engaged at some stage in the 1950s in the Tovshin Yud. He got engaged, and he wanted to get a bracha from a tzaddik. So who's the tzaddik? This is the Rebbe at the age of 50. It's the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He's the leader. He's the person. So he decided he's going to go with his Kala. He asked his Kala, would you mind if we go together and get a bracha for our wedding from the Rebbe? So she said, that's a great idea. And those people, I know this, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough that I remember the generation, before my generation, for 5-10 years older, who hardly had family. and they learned in yeshivas, whatever it was, Litvish, Chassidish, Chabad, whatever it was, and their family, the whole life, was my principal in Torah High School, Rabbi Quinn. I found out 30 years later he was born with a bracha of the Rebbe Rashab. It's a story in its own. And including the bracha of Adichas Yom, he lived till about 105. Anyway, but Rabbi Quinn said he was talking about he was talking in 1955, telling us what life was like in 1945. He said when we went out on shidduchim, nobody could afford a suit. We had one suit, and everybody would borrow it. The suit gemach. He was trying to tell us how you guys are living it up because you have your own suit. Forget about two suits. So a person's whole society and his whole reality was the yeshiva he learned. So he told them what he's doing. He said, "Look, guys, I'm getting married in another month, and my wife and I, my Kala and I, decided we're going to go to get a bracha from a Godel. We're going to Lubavitcher Rebbe." He says, all my friends said, whatever you do, don't go to Lubavitcher Rebbe for a bracha. He said, why not? That's because he's going to tell you to learn Chassidus. And he is a great man. He's a tzaddik. And if a tzaddik tells you, you're trapped. you won't be able to, like this, you don't learn. The Rebbe tells you to learn and you don't learn. Don't go. And he says, yeah, I'm going. Anyway. So he went with his kala. So that's the yichidus he had. So I said, what happened in yichidus? So he said, I'll tell you two things. Number one, the Rebbe said, why, when a person gets married, is the specific bracha that they are wished, that they are blessed with, is the bracha of a binyan adayad. It's an occasion in your life. What's the binyan adayad? Something forever. And the Rebbe said, it's because your behavior, you're young, you're inexperienced, but the things that you do at that stage of your life will be reflected and will have echoes for your entire life. It's a binyan that means that is a moment in time, but it's not just a snapshot just of that moment. It's something which is going to affect your whole life. And secondly, the Rebbe said, I advise you that every day you should learn Musa. And he heard this and he was bowled over. And the next morning, he came to yeshiva, and everybody there was with a semi-smirk on their face. Yeah, you went? He said, yes, okay. A bit more to smirk, a little bit of smile. What did the Lubavitcher Rebbe tell you? He said, every day, the smile's getting bigger, I should learn Musa. What? That's the story. But I was in Torah V'das. 10 years later, 5 years later, in the 50s. And a lot of our guys, they weren't getting married, including I. I was already hanging around. I used to have a shia every Wednesday night in the dormitory with Rabbi Geshem Mendel Gorelik, Alav Shalom, for 2 years. That's one of the reasons that I'm here. But there were these shiurim Rabbi Suda gave, and Moshe Bogomilsky gave, Talangiyah, and Yudel Krinsky gave. There were a lot of, these were the Bachrim in those days. And they gave shiurim, and a certain number came Lubavitchers, and most were always very positive. And I went into Yechidus, in Tovshi Yud Zayin, Yud Ches Oda. I went to Yechidus before my 17th birthday, 2 days before my 17th birthday. And the Rebbe told me to learn every day Chassidus for at least 10 minutes. But my friends in my class, some of whom became psychologists, doctors, well-known in different communities, and many of them, maybe most, the Rebbe told to learn Musa. And I spoke today, I told this story over today in a Zoom lesson for the top 3 classes in California. One of the things that the whole COVID did is that you speak now all around the whole world without leaving your house. Anyway, so and I explained that the Rebbe said this is all based on a Sikha. Musa and Chassidus, they're both there to try to cultivate Yiras Shamayim in a person. It's a different approach. Musa is the way of Sumeirah, try to make a person become more edel, but it's a holy thing. And Chassidus is about Asay Tov. We'll put it another way. Musa centers upon the person, about improving and elevating your character. That's what Musa is about. And Chassidus is about Elikus, getting close to God. It's not getting away from your bad midas or getting close to your midas, which is still ego-driven. It's there to go and get closer to Hashem. So, what's Rosh Chodesh Kislev? Rosh Chodesh Kislev reminds me that a Yom Tov for Lubavitcher Rebbe is a Yom Tov for Klal Yisrael, meaning the Rebbe was a person who was a giant sheba giants. But as my friend Jonathan Sachs, told me, not once, and that's why he said it publicly as well 100 times, he visited all these different Jewish leaders, he said when you're in the presence.
Tomorrow.
Pardon?
His yard set's tomorrow. He says his yard set tomorrow.
His yard set was Chof Cheshvin, and I was invited by the United Synagogue to give a talk about the early years. The early years, we put a book. Nobody knows that. I get the letters he sent me from yeshiva, but I don't think there would be a bombshell if they went out. His description of the yeshiva in Kfar Chabad, for example, it wasn't always so.
We'll give them out for you one day.
What?
One day we'll give them out for you. You don't know about it till afterwards. It's okay.
Anyway, so he said that he went to America. I met him on Pashish Mishpatim, Tafshin Chof Ches, 1968, 55 and a half years ago. But that summer he went to the States and he was doing a project on Jewish leadership, and he visited about 15 Orthodox. He visited Rabbi Soloveitchik. He visited Rabbi Heschel, conservative. He visited Cincinnati, Reform. He visited Nochum Goldman, who was secular leadership, Jewish agency type of thing. And he had a list of questions, and he asked them all questions. And then he said wherever he went, they said something about the Rebbe. Everyone said something about the Rebbe, so he decided to go to the Rebbe. So we arranged it, and he took his Greyhound bus back from California, where he had some relatives, to New York, and he went into Yechidus. Then he asked us questions, and when he finished, the Rebbe said, "Can I ask you a question?" He said, "Sure." And the Rebbe said, "What do you propose to do to enhance Jewish life for the Yidden in Cambridge University?" And when he was interviewed, when he became chief rabbi, in England, it's a position in the whole country. So he was on national television, which millions of people watched. Now they said, "What does a guy like you from one of the top colleges in Cambridge Gufa, in Keyes College, how do you become a rabbi?" And his answer was, he spoke about the Rebbe. It wasn't about tree. He was a person who was from. He was like a Mizrahi boy, Bnei Akiva boy. I don't know what would have happened to him in the 60s, but I believe he would always have remained. He was a person with a munah pshuta, with all his brilliance. And he said it was the first time in his life that anybody told him that he's supposed to do something, not just imbibe, not just to absorb what the Jewish community is giving him, what life is giving him. The Rebbe said, he said, in every one of the 15 people he met, you can sense, in their presence, you can sense their greatness. But with the Rebbe made you sense your own greatness, your own potential. That was the biggest thing about the Rebbe. Made leaders. He made a person to follow, to a leader. So when a person says, Yom Tifel Avavich Rebbe, Yom Tifel Klal Yisrael, I believe it's because he, at least subconsciously, was aware that the Rebbe is a person who challenges you and encourages you and empowers you, enables you to be able to see that you have a bigger potential than just treading water spiritually, than just, just doing what you're doing. It's something more than that you can do. You can make a difference. That's what Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Then compared to that, when you say that after Rosh Chodesh Kislev till Gimel Tammuz was Sivis Hashem, was printing Tanyas, was Muridig Esichis, Muridig Maimorim, Didal Notzach, Sivis Hashem, Shir Rambam. Think of all. I once made a list of 12 things. I read it out to an assembly in my school. Once a week I have an assembly. I said, this is even bigger, in a sense. It's saying you have it in you. You guys are people in Crown Heights. You're like in Crown Heights. We're at the oil with the Kislev Shluchim on Friday, and the Pan Kololi is about 7 pages. And in that page, and obviously this week it mentioned a lot about Eretz Yisrael. There were 3 communities which were singled out. It's a thing for Klal Yisrael, really, and for all the shluchim, and for their families. But there were 3 groups of people who were singled out for a bracha. One was the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, because of the matzah. And one was the Yidden and the shluchim in Ukraine and Russia. And the third was the Toshavim of Crown Heights, as a role model for the whole world, as in a sense, shluchim for the shluchim. So now, normally, conventional wisdom is that the shluchim, the Toshavim of Crown Heights, are a role model to the shluchim because of 2 powerful things. The biggest thing is the hachnosis orchim that takes place. I think that was mentioned in the pan. I don't think the whole project of shlichus could exist in the form that it does, in the format that it does. Quite apart from all other activities that depend upon this community for hachnosis orchim. And tzedakah, supporting the moisters. But I want to say a different thing. That every single person here can do themselves what a shliach cannot do. And I'll tell you a story. There's a guy in England, a colleague of mine, and he was in Yechidus about 55 years ago. About 50 years ago. Yeah. And he complained to the Rebbe that he felt somehow left out because because his shlichus was not spiritual, it was administrative, it was dealing with fundraising, with the banks, with the overdraft, with seeing that everything should be in order, overseeing a major moiset with workers and everything. He said, my colleagues went there, and this one's a teacher, and this one's a rov, and this one's in adult education, goes to B'nai B'rith groups, and there was no Chabad on campus. This one goes to campuses. Didn't exist then. A Chabad on campus, when I came to England, I was Chabad on campus, but I wasn't on campus. I was in Stanford Hill, and I visited about 20 different campuses. About 6 or 7 had regular shiurim, including Cambridge and Oxford, some every week, some every 2 weeks, whatever. And then there were Shabbatonim, there were Pegishas. These are the type. He said They're all dealing with spiritual activities. And my job is to deal with the Goyish bank manager and to see how we can pay off the wages at the end of the week, or at least be only a month behind, or only 2 months behind, or only 3 months behind, or only 8 months behind. So a Greer once said, I won't give another penny to your place here. I said, why? A very, very rich guy. He said, because the shliach told me that he hasn't been paid for 8 months. So why should I give you money? I said, it's a lie. Either the shliach didn't say it, or he's telling it to you in the wrong. It's language. People give you a language. It's language. The guy might be working in the Moises for 40 years, and he got paid, instead of getting paid every every 30 days, he got paid every 35 days, every 40 days, and the accumulated debt might be 8, that could be. But there's nobody there that didn't get paid, usually every month. Maybe it wasn't the full wage, and they had a record. Sometime, somebody once gave, this one guy went to put on tefillin, he did mitzvahim in an old age home, and a person died and left about $10 million to lavish or something, and they paid up all the wages on the spot. And then they said all the individual moisdes have to raise their own, I think 2/3 of the cost. That's when I first became a fundraiser. I spent 27 years spending it, and then I had to start raising it. Anyway, so he told the Rebbe, my job is an office job. It's not this is not what you call shlichus. So the Rebbe said, if you're allowed to say a typical answer of the Rebbe said, Adarabba, you have what nobody else has. He says a teacher gets a roll book with a list of which kids are in the class. He gets a syllabus. He knows what he has to teach, this Chumash, this Gemara, this Nach, this Shulchan Aruch, whatever he has to teach. A rabbi knows his community. He knows the families. He has to see their development spiritually, materially, and what he has to speak on the Sedra. Everything's predictable. You go to a B'nai B'rith group, you know their standard, the Yiddishkeit, and you prepare to meet them on that level and to elevate them. And the same with university students. He said, you have the mile of Ashgacha process. You never know who's going to walk into your office. That's what the Rebbe said. He looked to the miler. You never know who's going to walk into your office, and therefore have a pair of tefillin in your drawer, so you don't have to walk down 2 flights in order to get a pair of tefillin. And I still to this day don't know how the Rebbe knew that the architecture of Lubavitch in England is that the shul is 2 floors below it's on the bottom floor, and the office is, you have to go up. You go up 1 flight to the office and down 1 flight to the shul, so it's 2 flights between. And everything, you don't have to walk down 2 flights to get a pair of tefillin. So the people in Crown Heights, everybody should have a pair of tefillin, either your own or there's one when you go to work, or somebody comes to your house, or it could be a delivery person. We're all one. We are all one. And we're all doing the same thing. And one person is doing it in a more predictable way, and one person doing it in a Hashgacha Pratis way. One person meets them every day, and the other one, it happens once every week, once every month. But it's there, he sees his job as doing something for the Rebbe. Chaim. Time to eat something. You guys, and Nigan.
Tells his mom.
Somebody asked me tonight a story about the Rebbe and my Shver. And I said, it's good you asked me. I said, because he said, I wanted to check out if it's accurate. Which it wasn't. But I said that I have a potential book of 500 pages of stories between me personally and the Rebbe, which never happened. But people come to me and say, oh yeah, I heard this story about you. And some of them, it did happen, but not to me. Some of them I worked out, I guessed. But I'm talking really, to me it was like a puzzle. And I worked out who was the guy it might have happened to. And I went to the guy, and it was exactly that guy that it happened to. So a story labeled Groner's book. Some of them, I don't recognize the story. As I say, 500 pages, it might be not exaggeration. I never measured it. It was like, the most famous one of all is the guy whose plane was diverted, because the Rebbe told him one day your plane's going to be diverted. A non-Lubavitcher, and always bring challah with you. We always have food for Shabbos. And he said, I never travel. I'm always with my wife for Shabbos since I'm married. I never said, do it. And then he went, and his plane was diverted to Greenland. And Shmuel happened to be there at Shabbos. And he was machnas oirich. He went to the office. Whatever, it's a whole bunch of things. And somebody showed this to me. I was in, a year and a half ago, like Weimar time, I was in Milano. And they showed me a Hebrew comic with that whole story. And so I read it. So I said to the shaliach, his little kid, 5-year-old kid, was reading this. They spoke Hebrew. I said, there's 6 things in that story that didn't happen. He says, tell me what. I said, I was never in Greenland Shabbos ever. He said, okay, I don't need the other reasons anymore. I said, I went there on Monday morning. It was over Yom Kippur. It was Wednesday. And Friday afternoon, I left. Yeah. Anyway, the guy tonight, he told me that when my shver arranged the first flight to New York, 1961, Tov Shechov Aleph, Tammuz. And it was very cheap, like people paid, it was like about $75 to go from England to New York, and to get a yechid, everyone there, even not Lubavitchers, got a yechidus with the Rebbe. So they gave a present to my shver of a shas, a very nice, and those days that was the deluxe, the Meorah shas from Gurari. And in it, they got a sofer to write in Hebrew, like a very big thank you to Mr. Jaffe for arranging this flight, to be signed by all the passengers. And the inscription by the sofer was in Baba Metzia, because that's what they were learning in the shul at that time. And my shver told them, write in Baba Metzia. Then he went to Yechidus with the Gemara, and he asked the Rebbe, please autograph it. Please sign the Gemara. So the Rebbe said, he doesn't normally do this. He said, but everyone's signing. But the Rebbe said, I'm not a passenger. It says there, we, the passengers of the flight, in Hebrew. He says, I'm not a passenger. So he said, wherever we go as a group, the Rebbe is with us. And the Rebbe signed. The Rebbe signed. I told the guy tonight, there's a photograph of it, of that page that's printed. My shver was upset because the people didn't understand. He wanted everybody else to sign on a different page. Just the Rebbe's signature be, but the end is the Rebbe's there together with about 120 signatures on the page. Just mentioning. Chaim l'chaim.
Yossi. Rosh Hashanah.
I wrote thanks to Zainab, right? It's Avi. But it's
Mixed the mask in.
No. Say.
You're imbuing it. Yeah. You know, I want to speak about relationships. Relationships, you know what it means? Friendships, marriage, parenting, shul, anything in the world, unless you're in solitary confinement. Part of your life is relationship. Obviously, in his kashrus, there's a question of a relationship. And how do you define a relationship? I want to tell you a story I heard from the Rebbe. It's a famous story, but I heard it direct from the Rebbe about 60 years ago. And then I want to tell you something that happened to me. A story from the Gemara that somebody asked me a question about. I'm not Lubavitch. About a year and a half ago. And how and the thinking process that I'm working on this for the last year, thinking this through. The different, and you'll be able to, in your own way, you'll be able to do it yourself. The question was, the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Rebbe, used to learn. Don't forget, the Rebbe Rashab became a Rebbe when he was 21 years old, and he used to learn with a chavrusa. And the chavrusa was the Poltava Rov. You ever heard the Poltava Niggin? This was the Poltava Rov who made up that Niggin, or he was attributed to him. His name was Rabbi Meir Bespalov. His last name was Bestov. He had a son whose name was Shnei Zalman, was a Rav in San Francisco, California.
Yeah.
What?
Really?
That you know.
You remember him?
What?
Remember his son from San Francisco? Do you remember his son? Do you remember the one from San Francisco? Did you?
I saw letters. I saw his name on letters and stuff.
Yeah.
With the name of the city.
He wrote
Anyway, the Rebbe Rashab was learning with him, and they also had discussions, which appear. Some of these discussions appear in the Sichos of the Frierdiker Rebbe in Kudei Diburim. So once they were discussing what is a chosid, and I think that he said, "I fault the Rebbe." He listens what the Rebbe says. So the Rebbe Rashab said, "That's not a chosid. That's an Orthodox Jew. That's a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch Jew." If a Rebbe tells you, if a rabbi tells you to do something, it's a mitzvah in the Torah that you have to you have to listen to the Rav. That's not a chosid. He said a chosid is there was a makusha to the Rebbe, someone who was attached to the Rebbe. He said that's not a chosid. That's Shulchan Aruch. Makusha means you obey them. He said a chosid is a yid who is makusha to the pu'ulas of the Rebbe. He's makusha to the activities of the Rebbe. And so that's the story. I put it the way that I heard from Mendel Putafas, who lived in England, don't forget, for years. I came to England in the end of Elul Tovshin Chav Hei, and Reb Mendel was sent by the Rebbe to go on a trial for the summer in Tovshin Lamed Aleph, 6 years later, to Kfar Chabad, and if he likes it, and if they like him, to take up the job as the mashpia there. He never said, spend the next year closing down your business, Lamed Beis, and if at the beginning of Lamed Gimel, you go to Kfar Chabad, if everything works out. Reb Mendel told me the story, by the way, in the Shiva for his daughter. He said, my business I can close down in a week. I don't need a year to close down a business. But he understood his daughter, Rahman al-Sam, was killed on Ches Elul, Tovshin Lamed Aleph, just a few weeks after all this happened. A month later. And then she left 11 kids. Yossi Liebrov was the oldest. He was in yeshiva, but there was 10 kids in the house. It was a major organizing effort, logistical challenges that took place that year. Anyway, that's my Muska. That Farbrengen, I was, and to remember me because I'm from his community. And he was like laughing. He said, in London, the Farbrengen ends on Shabbos at 3 o'clock. In Kvach it begins at 3 o'clock. And he was down until 3 o'clock anyway. Nowadays, by the way, in London, it ends at 2. You can set your watch. There was a knife roof there, a guy was there, and he said, this Farbrengen's not, it was so notorious. He said, this Farbrengen's not, 5 years ago. He says, it's not going to end at 2 o'clock. And he screamed and shouted, and he pushed out the bima, because they were making me a mincha. And it didn't end at 2 o'clock. But 90% of the people went to the next room. I made a meeting. Anyway, this was not the Zach. So, when Mendel said it, that's Farbrengen, it's just that I remember the one word. He said, a son who listens to his father, when his father asks for something, that's not the ultimate kibbutz. That's not the ultimate relationship between a son to a father. The ultimate is that he anticipates what his father needs or what his father wants, and he gives it to him, or he does it for him, not because he was told. And I always thought that means a makusha to the pu'ulis means doing what you know the Rebbe would want you to do, not because the Rebbe told you to do it. The Rebbe told you to do it. It's not a chiddush. A much bigger chassid is the one who wasn't told and he did it. It's actually in a sikha who told us. I just saw today in a sikha from the project Liquid Sikhas by Esav and Yaakov. That Esav wanted to get credit for Vayishma Esav, Esav at the end of Toldus. So Vayishma Esav. So the Rebbe said that Esav wanted to show a one-upmanship. He's better than Yaakov. Yaakov was told by his father not to marry from the local people and to go to a different place. So he married from Shmuel. It's also not from the locals. He wanted to show he's better. How is he better? Because he was not told to do it. If you're told to do something and you do it, what's the chiddush? Anyway, so here's the story. That's all the background to the story that happened. I can't tell you the story happened with me with a guy from Torah V'das as the beginning. I got to tell you the story of the Rebbe and the Bereshab. But this illuminates the story. I met the guy. He happens to be a relative. I met him, unfortunately, at a shiva for my brother. Anyway, so we got close. I said to him, anytime you want to have a question. He phones me up. I've got a question. This is about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, probably. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning here in New York. He lives in Flatbush. And he asked me, he noticed, I think in the Yom Kippur, it was in Elul. And he was looking over the Machzor, or for the Gemara. The Gemara says in Erevin that there was an argument, a dispute, between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, whether Noach loy la'odom shedivra, or Noach loy shelo nivra. Would it be better for a person that he was born, or better that he was not born? And interesting, by the way, he didn't say it, but the Gemara doesn't say which, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, who said which opinion. It just tells the story. And they discussed it in depth for 2.5 years. And Nimnu v'Gamru, they concluded in the end, better if Noach lo shelo nivra. Better if a person is not born. But you are born, b'poil. Learn Torah and do mitzvahs. You know, make the most of it. Make it into something real. So I said, okay, that's a Gemara. I said, what's your question? He says, one question. What took these guys 2.5 years to discuss this? They should have been able to reach their respective views in 2.5 hours, in 2.5 minutes even. Someone asks your opinion. Okay, you think it through. He wanted to know, how can you see a question like that having so many facets and so many issues and so many aspects and so many possibilities and so many priorities that maybe it'll take him a year and 2 years to go through every possibility. And that they didn't even reach, they reached a conclusion. So I told him as follows. I heard this not from a Jewish source. I heard that the Japanese say, if you want to solve a problem, sometimes the best thing is to make it bigger, not to make it smaller. You want to cut off a piece of it, but you're not getting to the core. If you make the problem bigger, then you begin to see what the whole thing's about, and then you'll be able to work out what's the underlying thing. And once you fix the underlying, you fixed everything. Anyway, so I say, let me make the question bigger. How can you say that it's not good for a person to be created when there's a befedish pasuk in the first chumash, in the first sedra, in the first chapter? Vayar Elokim es kol asher osa v'hinei toiv ma'od. And God saw everything He made, and it wasn't stam good; it was very good. And Hashem created Nasa Adam B'Talmeinu. So how can you say that it's not good for a person to be created? And secondly, a key mitzvah, especially to us after October the 7th, is Pru'avu. The first mitzvah of the Torah is to have a child. How can the Torah tell you to do something which is not good for the kid? How can the Torah tell, if it's not good to be born, how can the Torah tell you to have children? And the answer is, by the way, I didn't know it at the time, but through the practical Sikutissichas, it's actually, the Alter Rebbe mentions a form of this question, a spiritual form, about Olam Atzilus and Olam Abriya, in Lekutei Torah Pashas Re'eh. You can check it. It's half a column. It's a kitzur of a maimah, and in it the Alter Rebbe says Chas v'Sholem to say Toiv lo shenivro, and he talks about that Gemara. It doesn't say it's good for a person to be born or not. Noyach loy lo odom. Is it comfortable? Is it easy? Is it the lazy option to be born or not? And on that, it says it's good to be born, but it's not easy. And then I told him a little bit about relationship. I told him, I explained to him, I said, by the way, how much time do we have? I told the guy. He says, I work in New Jersey. I have 1 hour ride from Flatbush to New Jersey. I said, okay, so we can talk. I told him about Ratzah V'Shuv, that when you love somebody, and we talk about relationships, if you really love somebody, how could you tell you love them? Draw their picture, write a poem about them, sit there and just look at them the whole time and say, oh, I really, really think you're great. And I told him, I said, do you take the drive to New Jersey on Sundays? He's way crazy. I don't work on Sundays. I said, but you don't take the drive anyway? He said, what's take the drive? I said, well, you're doing something you don't want to do. If you don't do it on your day off, so why do you do it today? You know why you do it? Because you love your wife and your family. You love your wife and your 7 kids, which he has. And that love is expressed when you sit with them and you sing, or you argue, or you just talk. On Shabbos you go out. That's a very valid and important and necessary aspect of love, of care, of friendship. But the real test of it is when it's not noyach lo. The real test of it, I said, listen, when they were arguing about this, they were trying to say which is better. Is Rosh better or Shuv better? I told them other examples from Ruchniistic things. But you see it in life, generally, there's such a thing that, I tell you, a different brother of mine, this brother passed away a year and a half ago, but a younger one, he lives in Lakewood now, he's 79, my kid brother, and the youngest one. And he came to England when he was like a newlywed or something, about 55 years ago probably, 56 years ago. And he came to England, maybe he was on the way to Israel, I don't remember why. I just remember, I only remember one thing, I know he was in our house for the better part of a week with his wife. And they went touring, they went there. But and he's a very popular kind of a person, a very charismatic, extroverted, and he knows a little bit. He lived in Staten Island for 40 years and davened in Young Israel. And whenever Rabbi Marcus, the rabbi who I met, the rabbi was born on Yud Aleph Nisan, and he said, I was born when I came to the shul there. So the rabbi says, when I was born? Yud Aleph Nisan. That's what his claim to pride was. A gigantic Young Israel. But my brother was the one that was to give the drasha. He's that kind of a guy. He has something to say, and this and that. I had a whole yechidus about him once. So I asked him, I said to my brother, hey, tell me something. Because I'm like his older brother, 4.5 years older than him. I said, do you have any friends? Which would seem like a crazy question to ask him at the age of 25, because he was very popular. And he said, I know a lot of people, and I have a lot of friends, but if your question is that if I have a problem or a crisis at 3 o'clock in the morning, is there anybody I could phone up at that time? He says, 1, maybe 2. Max 3 that I can call up. And from the whole week he was in my house, that's why I only remember that sentence, because it was such a profound sentence. As a definition of what a friend is. What does it mean, a friend? If your friend is your friend when you feel like it, and your friend is your friend when things are going smooth, and if your friend is your friend when you're having a great time, by the way, all of which 3 things are necessary for a friendship. You remember all the good times you had together, but that's not the definition. If a difficult moment comes and your friend needs you, and you're not there, because it's not noach lo, it's not comfortable, then that friendship is really, it's self-love. That's all it is. As long as it fits into my agenda, you fit in there. You have your own place in my agenda. I've got you here. I've got all my little things in all the little holes. I put in all the little puppets in all the little holes. And you're one of them. You don't say it, but that's the reality. So if somebody sleeps for 8 hours uninterrupted, and everything's good, and nobody needs you at 3 in the morning for any crisis. He lost his passport and he's at the border, or he had a flat tire, or the kid woke up in the middle of the night, whatever it was, and you sleep 8 hours, that is called noyach loy. That's one level of comfort. Then somebody comes to you and says, you know what? you know what? I need you. And it might be something you do for them all the time. It might be something you do for them 10, 15, 20 times in a year. But today happens to be the day that I hardly slept last night. I've been having headaches lately. And just today, we had a gas leak or a power failure. And just today, this and this happened. I got into an argument with so-and-so. And this person needs you that moment. And especially if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. And you get up and you say, okay, I'll come. And you go. So that means you drew from a deeper reservoir of morality within yourself. It's the right thing to do, so I did it. Even though it's not the most comfortable, it's not noyachloi. But you feel it's right, it's correct, it's the priority at this moment. In this situation, I have to do it. But I say that there's a third level. The third level is that not only do you do it, but you thank the Eibishter, this person's going to need someone, thank God I was here for them. When it's not so comfortable, dafka when it's not so easy. And that's a real relationship. And I can see Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel getting at it. And I can see, and it doesn't, this I don't know, I didn't look at any Meforshim, I just looked at the story itself, was fascinating. But my own interpretation is, why don't we know what Beis Shammai said and what Beis Hillel said? Which is a kula, which is a chumrah? Because the truth is, it depends how you look at it. It could be different days. You see it different ways, but at least you can measure your connection. And that applies as a parent, that applies as a spouse, that applies as a chava, it applies as a member of a shul, it applies, I'm talking about discussions to the Rebbe. Going out of the way in a time when it's not in your comfort zone. Doing something which you wouldn't normally do. And not only that, you dafka wouldn't do it for anybody else, but it's for the Rebbe. That's a kosid. At that moment, you might only experience it once in your life, or once in a year, or once in 2 years. But that moment, cherish it. That moment when you went out of your comfort zone is a completely different level of life. It's a different depth of experience. It's a completely, I tell you, I had a Talmidah. I'm a principal in the girls' high school, last 48 years. And we have thousands, there's different people that went, there's some of the regulars, so people live there. We have a lot of people not Chabad. People sent me just now, since October the 7th, I got two separate things of girls in the army. If someone sent it, they sent me a WhatsApp, it's a 2-minute clip or something, and they said, where's your education? She says, I actually went to a Chabad, with a shliach, went there on the base, or in the Gaza Strip. She said, I went to a Chabad school. That's one of my Talmidos. So the head teacher sent it to me. They're not Lubavitch families, by the way. Not because there aren't any, but I don't know if they would say they went to a Lubavitch school. Anyhow, so anyway, so we had all this time. There's one girl. She was in our school for a year, maybe 2 years, I don't know. And then she went to a less frum school. And then she went to a third one, which is even less frum. But only in England a few years. And then she's in America. That's where she is. Now she's now Mr. 55. I don't know. This is years ago. But somehow she took a liking to. She liked my because of severe financial cuts. We couldn't afford it to have every class davening separately and going through the chitas. We divided the school into 2, And I took one half of the school, the older half, and I gave them a summary. They davened together, not singing, they just davened. And then I gave them the chitas of the day, in 10, 15 minutes, a synopsis. And she really liked it. She asked me for a shus at that time to record it. And then she fried out Lagami and she wrote to me. She went to write to me, but she was still a teenager. She wasn't by me anymore. Don't ever write to me again. I don't want to hear from you ever again. And I immediately wrote back and I said, you can rip this letter up, the first line. I said, you don't have to write to me. I'm going to keep on writing to you. And we had ups and downs, and at some stage later on, when she was a red adult, I said, where are those tapes? And she said, I still have them. The little cassettes. Still have them. Now, she's a very big activist, but she went through a difficult few years. And then one year she called me about something. I helped her. At the end of the day, I got her introductions for jobs and stuff like that, when she really needed it. And I was lucky, was not a Lubavitcher person. And then, so I said, where are you going to be Pesach? It must have been for time. I don't know why. She says, I'm nowhere. She's a single parent. I'm not going anywhere. And she said in a polite way, Hakmishkin Cup. I'm not going anywhere. I don't want to go. And she was crying, this. I said, I'm getting in touch with the Shaliach in this place where she lived. And you just be ready to go there. And I did, and the Shaliach got in touch with her. He sent her an email or whatever. And she didn't answer. And Erev Pesach Kipshuta. By me it was about 12 noon. That means it was 7 a.m. in the East Coast. The guy calls me up. I haven't heard back from her. What should I do? And I was in the spall. The Shaliach did everything he should have. He did. He invited her. What do you want from him? He's going to have probably his own 200 people coming or whatever. So I phoned her up right then and there. It was 7 o'clock by her also. And she said, I told you I don't want to go. And I said, you have to go. He's not calling you up for cosmetic reasons. That was the invitation. You could say he didn't really mean it. He did it. But now on Erev Pesach, you know how busy he is. And that's what means he wants you to go. How could you not go? And I went through this whole line. At some stage, she said, okay, how long do I have to stay there? How long do I have to stay there? So I said to her, you stay there as long as you feel like staying there. As long as you're comfortable. Yeah? I said, yes. Plus 5 minutes. I said, I just say 5 minutes when you're not comfortable. And then go home. I told you the whole story for that sentence. Sometimes it's just, it's a little gesture. And when you say 5 minutes, you're not comfortable. You're not comfortable. That doesn't mean, okay, I'm gonna factor that in. I would have stayed for an hour, but now for 55 minutes. Now I'll stay for an hour. That's not what it is. It's I would have stayed for an hour, and then finally the hour is over. 5 minutes, and it's in everything in life. Work on your machshava. Just 5 minutes extra. Mendel Futterman said that it's possible, he says, you could win over your whole Yetzer Hara with 5 minutes. He said, when he tells you to do an Aveda, to have a Machshava Zora, tell him, come back in 5 minutes. Just keep on pushing it off. Once you push it off, you feel empowered, you feel good, you feel comfortable. So it's the idea of how do you judge, how do you measure friendship, how do you measure loyalty as a spouse, love, parenting, child, community activism. anything you want in the world, it's not heavy, big things. It's small things of loy noyachloy. It means going out of your comfort zone for the thing. So anyway, l'chaim. Der Rebbe ist auf helfen. Chodesh Kislev. Der Rebbe ist gesund. Der Rebbe ist gesund. Der Rebbe is gesund is not just saying a historical fact. It's talking about a contemporary accessibility. You know what that means? It means there's something that's there today. The Rebbe is gesund. The only question is he gesund in me or not? And the Rebbe is gesund in you when you take that 5 minutes that's out of the comfort zone. L'chaim, l'chaim. Okay, boys, that's the comfort zone. Bye.
5 minutes. 5 more minutes.
It's just a 5-minute notice. They have to build into the thing itself. That 5 minutes becomes part of the thing.
Tell us one yechidus of yours.
Pardon?
Please tell us one yechidus of yours.
One yechidus.
The one that didn't go on Gem.
What?
The one that doesn't go on Gem. The one that you can't watch on Gem.
The nicht gedrückte.
That's a good question. I have voice notes which I started making.
And they made it onto a folder today. Yeah,
You know what? Yeah, but I have one. There's one which I've been making for the last half a year, and I'm hoping that sometime in the next 25 years I'll do it, because that's the one that you won't see on Jen. Well, all the stories are the ones that noyachloi. Yeah, I'll tell you one which I haven't done, but I probably will do it. That one, which I hope to do it. I have to work out when I make one of those things for 5 minutes. I don't write it out, but it's usually anything up to a month or more that I'm thinking about it somewhere, and then later on I always regret. I'm always missing a detail. I just want to give over a mood, a whole Indian. So, and this thing is like something which is highly, highly, highly embarrassing and personal, letting down the Rebbe. And the reason I want to do it is because it should benefit somebody else. But I have to work out a way. That's all. It's balancing three things: my embarrassment versus doing what's the right thing for somebody else, versus making excuses in yourself. Like, why it's really not better this way, that way. It's working out which is better, which is worse.
You can make it into a comic with somebody else's name on it.
It's a good eitzah. It's a good eitzah. But the trouble is that when it gets really, really personal, then it loses the accuracy. I have one I saw. This one I mentioned, it's not about me. It is about me, but this wasn't. The answer wasn't to me. It's my whole life, but it's all of you. Probably a lot of you. I gave it in the workshop. All that in itself is a possible. It would have to be 3 or 4 voice notes. Somebody asked about half a year ago, or about 3 months ago, about the Rebbe's views on chinuch. This was this kind of school. What's the Rebbe really want? Because there's so many different things. And so I gave a talk on that in the Kislev. But that's not a 5-minute voice note. That was a 50 minutes, or approximately, which when I work through. I'll tell you a chiddush about my brother, who has friends that he can wake up at 3 a.m. That same brother, before he came to England, he was in Torah Das and going to Brooklyn College at night, and he got his degree or whatever. He worked at OU a lot of years. He worked in Lakewood, manages the Beis Fega, a Simcha Hall. And now, I was 4 years in Montreal, and I really was desperate to come to 770. I wanted to get to Ebbets Farbrengen. I wanted 100%. Well, to the extent that I'm possibly 100% Shem Shemayim, it was 100%. And I didn't even write it, settle it. I just went to Rabbi Chadakov, and I said, if I stay in 770, I'll be able to be Makar of my brother. You know, my brother was from, but this was, you know, look, see, and could you get me, I have about half a dozen such things that I didn't write, that I asked Rabbi Chadakov to ask the Rebbe on my behalf. Rabbi Chadakov used to go in every night, at the end of the day. The Rebbe's day, and whether it was Yechidus, whether it was 4 in the morning, whether it was an early night, which meant like 11 o'clock, midnight, when the Rebbe went home, Rabbi Chadakov would go in, anywhere from 5-10 minutes, he'd go in there for 45 minutes to an hour even. To whatever, I don't know what they did at the end of the day. But he told me that the Rebbe said, live with your brother, stay. It was never written. And that's when I went to 770 Tov Shechov Beis. And my brother was supposed to come to 770 every Thursday night, and we're going to learn. And this was the tkufa that I was traveling a lot with Rabbi Berel Bam, other people doing for tzach, a lot of afatzah. And I go away for Shabbosim, sometimes away Thursday, and he would have his basketball game on Thursday, whatever. In the course of the year, I'm not sure if we learn more than 10 times. I'm not sure. But we learn. Now, this was Chav Beis. At the end of Chav Beis, I got engaged. At the end of Chav Gimel, I got married. At the end of Chav Hey, I went on Shlichus. And Yud Tes Kislev, Tov Shin Chav Zayin. I came in. The rule was that if you're a Shlich overseas, you can come in once every 2 years. And Rabbi Chadakov says, doesn't mean 2. You give me 1.5 years, you know. Well, you came in once for Yud Shvat, you can come in 2 years later, Yud Tes Kislev, even though it's 2 months before. So I asked her that. My father, Olav Shalom, wanted me to come in for my brother's wedding, that brother. And, but it was less than 2 years. It was 1.25 years. He got married in Kislev. So I wrote to Rabbi Chadakov. I said, what am I supposed to do? And he said, and he answered, the Rebbe said, since your father wants you to come, come. And I did. And the wedding was there 2-3 days after Yitzis Kislev. A day after Yitzis Kislev, the night before the wedding was Yechidus. I came with my wife. And we were in Yechidus, and out of the blue, the Rebbe says to me, is this the same brother you used to learn Chassidus with? And it took me a couple of seconds, at least, to recall what the Rebbe was talking about. It was like, you know, 5 years before, wasn't really happening that much, really. He was my ticket to 770. I maintained the contact with him, but we weren't learning that regularly. You know, certainly not every week. And I said, yes. So the Rebbe said, land Machal Chassidus. Is he still learning Chassidus? So what should I say? Any ideas? Before I tell you what I actually say. What should I have told the Rebbe?
He's going to start now.
What?
He'll start now.
What do you say?
He'll start now.
Yeah, I wish I would have said that. That would have been a good one. That would be a good smile. I said, ich weiß nicht. What do I? Why is he learning Chassidus? So the Rebbe said, And as he said it, the face grew into a full smile. Die willst nicht reden lassen, Horef and Bruder. And then he told me a sentence, a one-liner, and he said it at least twice, and I think it might have been 3 times over the next few minutes. He said, speak to your brother, onachrayus. That what that responsibility meant, it's not your fault. Tell him in my name that I said the following message. The Rebbe is saying this. Ovar is over. The past is past. And you can get it in Hebrew or Yiddish or English, whichever is more accessible to him. And Rebbe said this in different forms. Over is over, it's certainly twice. In my nomen and onachrayus at least twice. And I think very strongly it might have been 3 times. But I'm not sure. And the Rebbe was maybe afraid of my relationship with my brother, which was excellent always. And the next morning, and he was living with my father, the only one. My mother had passed away a couple of years before. They were in that house in Williamsburg. I went up to his room. I was staying in the house with my wife. And I said, I was in your Chodesh last night. The Rebbe asked about you. He was totally bowled over that the Rebbe remembered him and cared enough to ask. He was and he said definitely he'll do it. Eventually he lives in Borough Park and he learned with Max Scheiner, Mordechai Scheiner, and then he moved to Lakewood, to Staten Island. He learned with Rabbi Katzman for 40 years. Then he moved to Lakewood and he stopped. Probably. I don't want to talk Lashon Hara. And then his grandson, his granddaughter got married 2 years ago. So it wasn't lockdown, but it was a time of distancing, and they made a big federal case out of when you move from one country to another, the laws and isolation, v'chulu. And the Chosin side, very, very wealthy Jews in Golders Green. And the guy could not afford to take off 2 weeks to go into isolation. So he paid tickets for all the immediate family to come from America to make the wedding here in England. It's outside London in some place. I remember because it was the first time in about a year that I went into public transport with masks, mices. And then during the lockdown, our own I know a big family, and the children are living in about 11 cities. Now the grandchildren, it's about 20 cities, different places. So, and so every Sunday we had a Zoom. This went on for about 2.5 years. Every Sunday at a Zoom, an hour, 2 hours, and just I would tell a story of the Rebbe or a Vort, and people would say something interesting that happened, what was going on in the community, chulu. I come home from that wedding, which was on a Sunday, and the Zoom was on. My wife was sitting there in the kitchen with the kids, and I said I met my brother that night at the wedding. And I said to him, I had Farbrengen Gimel Tammuz before that means 1.5 years ago, in Lakewood, in the Chabad house of Rabbi Meisels. So I said, and now I know a guy in Lakewood. You can look see this with him. So my brother said, fine. I came home and I told the story over to the family. That was my story for the Zoom. So my kids screamed at me. He said, why did you learn with him? On Zoom. So we started Zoom, and it was something like 1962, maybe 10 times in 1 year, something like that. And then he had health problem. They amputated a little part of it. He had to do this. He had some kind of a health issue, and now he's now been in rehab. So I said to him, we gotta do it. He said, I'm getting to Tanya to come into the, and we started already again about 3 weeks ago, but we're doing it. So that's a yichidus. That's the answer. A yichidus which is like a person rishon with the whole background and the whole the epilogue is still happening. And he looks very respectful of me. Yeah, I'm his older brother. Unfortunately, we're the only two brothers that are surviving right now. And I went with it. I went to America's to Rabbi Shalber Alperovich, Alav Shalom. He ran the kahos. And I got something in English and something in Hebrew and something in Yiddish to give him at that time. This is a good 55 years ago. And the big thing about that Yechidus, it's an interesting story, but how does it negate to you and to me? Those 3 words, in my opinion, are the key to life. Ova is Ova. The worst problem that any of us can fall into is not the Aveda or the lack of mitzvah, the error of omission or of commission that we do. The worst thing is the effect that it has on your self-image. Either resigned, look, that's me, I'm just a Rabbi Young, I might as well enjoy it. Or depression. I'm never going to... So the Rebbe said 3 words, Ova is Ova. Put it another way, every day is a lifetime. I've shiurim on Zoom, different ones. I used to go in the Kabbalah house in Bloomsbury, central London, and I tell them different things, and they say, look, it's too late. It's all over. And I say, you're a teenager. You're not 65 years old. You're not 45. Whatever happened in your life is, it's a background. That's my background. You have to take into consideration. It's far away. The future, anxiety, speculation, it's totally sterile, worthless. The only show in town is today. Over is over. You can make today a day which lasts forever. The Metzudas, the Pshat, it says in a pasuk, Ki elav shana be'einecha. I was at the oil yesterday for a grandson's became a chosin, but I was there a little bit longer than, maybe an hour or so. Not like on the kiddush or shluchim. You have to clear out. And I saw the pasuk, Ki elav shonim be'einecha ki yom esmol. 1,000 years in your eye, God, is like a day. So everyone knows it means that by the Eibishter, 1,000 years is like a day to us. But the Metzudas David says a different pirish, which I considered to be very, very potent, very powerful. I'm paraphrasing it. You have to read it into what he says. Whether you live 1,000 years or you live one day, it's limited. It's going to end. 1,000 years is not 1,001 years. So you're trapped. God forbid a person gets depressed from that. But the truth is, you can put into that day something which will last forever and ever for billions of years. And that means every day or every moment. Over is over. Forget it. Don't live in the past. Say, what can I do today in a plan? You have to plan, okay. And you have to have cheshbon and nefesh. But these are in the background. They are there to inform, to inspire, to elevate, to innovate, to energize, to empower what you're doing now. But that's the only thing that really matters. That you say, I haven't learned the Maimon Chassidus for the last 3 years. So what? Sit down now and learn something, and learn it 10 times until something there clicks. Look for 5 minutes out of the comfort zone. L'chaim. Ova is over. That's the code. And Mitzvah Hashem next year, Rosh Chodesh Kislev, you'll ask me for another year. We'll do it for the next 20 years or so. I was at a chasana tonight. I told the chassan, he said, give me a bracha. I said, I give you a bracha, but I want you to give me a bracha that I should dance at the wedding of your Bechor, who he just got married today. But I didn't ask for a bracha to take him on my shoulders. Because that would be already l'mayla min hateva. Chaim. We got to you, Tati.
Yes.
For the 5 minutes.
We have been ready 5 minutes.
I want to tell one more story, which is Nageh to Inyon the Yomim. About 30 years ago, give or take, a rabbi in England, he was making a series of family-related issues, invitations in his own private house. And he invited people. So I guess some of them, he told me he made about 4 or 5 of such evenings or afternoons. And he invited certain types, about 30, 40, 50 people to each place. Maybe invited some that came to the one that he invited me to speak about was about people that probably went to shul just Yom Kippur, iftar. With people like, he knew them because they come once a year and they were members, etc. And I'm supposed to speak about families. As a father of 15 children, to speak about the virtue of having children. And I did. So I want to tell you what the Nekuda which I told them. I said, you ask a question, what do you mean, sugar? 15 kids, are crazy? Or 8 kids, it's insane. 5 kids, it's also, many people consider it crazy. So I said, what do you need 1 kid for? Why have children at all? It's a tremendous, it's not noyach loy, that's for sure. It's not, your kids give you a good run for your money. But on the other hand, they become your best friend one day. If you play it right. If you put into the relationship even a little bit. Anyway, so I spoke about the fact that it depends. If you look at children as a burden, but a necessary burden, you have to do it. You pay your debt to society, or it's to replace the Jewish people or yourself, or it's to have someone to look after you, company. I don't know what it is. I said, if you look at it as a treasure, it doesn't mean you're going to have 20 kids, but it means you're going to see each one as a blessing. And I was matzia to these people who don't come to shul, maybe Yom Kippur. I didn't know any of them. I said, but except later on, the rabbi told me about one of them. I said, I'm not telling anybody here to have 15, or to have 12, or to have 10, or to have 8 even. All I say is that whatever number you're thinking of having, have 1 more. You wanted to have 4, have 5. You wanted to have 3, have 4. You wanted to have 2, have 3. That's all. And the rabbi called me up a few weeks later, and he said a woman called him up and said, I'm expecting a child because of your father-in-law. It was my Eidim, actually, the rabbi. He said, I'm expecting because of the rabbi's speech. I said, wow, this is, So, and her husband was the producer of the biggest, most popular, year after year, it doesn't exist anymore, children's television program in England. Very, very famous guy. He was Jewish. I didn't know if the program even existed. But they were there, and she said on the way home that Saturday night, we said, you know what? It makes sense. Now, what makes me suddenly remember that? This is 30 years ago. Now, after October the 7th, I had to speak 2 days later, the Tuesday night, 3-4 days later. They made a gathering for all the shuls in central London, and the Chodesh was, these are the real fancy shuls. 2 people from two government ministers spoke. There were over 1,000 people there in a shul. And the Chodesh was that they invited 2 or 3 Chabad houses. In other words, they recognized them not just as outreach. They didn't invite Eish, for example. They invited as shuls. And there were about 10 or 15 different speakers. Wasn't speaking, each one said a capital. My son it was not for me. My son is a rabbi there. He has a Chabad house there. But he was in Israel or in France. He was somewhere else. He was out of the country. He was in America. So he asked me to go for him. And you had to say Kapitilim, and this one had to sing a niggun, and this one said, I had the Mishaberach for the hostages. This was just 2 days after it happened. And they told me, the organizer, the rabbi, the local rabbi, he said, you speak before for 3-4 minutes. And that's what the program was about an hour and a half. About 10, 12 speakers, besides the government, a woman and a man from the government. And I was thinking of this thing. You want to know a response? I'm not telling you to go have 1,400 kids, or even 14. But if 1,400 people have one, imagine if 14,000 will have one more kid. And that's miyusan on a letter of the Rebbe to Eli Wiesel in the Igris. You can look it up. There aren't that many letters to him. It's a Yiddish letter of about 4 pages, maybe more. And Eli Wiesel did not want to get married. Check it out on your brothers, on your nephew. It's on the Mafteches problem. He didn't want to get married. And the Rebbe was trying to persuade Eli Wiesel to get married. He said he didn't want to get married because he did not want to bring children into this kind of a world which tolerated, let alone perpetrated, a Holocaust. And the Rebbe writes back in the letter, it's a rare thing, there are letters like that, but you probably count them on the fingers of 2 hands, maybe 1 hand, where the Rebbe mentions Hitler by name. And the Rebbe says Hitler wanted that there should be fewer Jews in the world. And you have the opportunity to see there should be more Jews in the world. That's the best answer. And he got married. And when he got engaged, the Rebbe sent a big bouquet of flowers to him. And when the son was born, he also got the son says it's in Gem. It's in here's my story. That he said it. So Meyusid on that. Meyusid on Dr. Zabladovich. Anyone heard of him? Neither did I. So he was a doctor in Philadelphia, a fertility doctor. And he's a Makurev of Shraga Sherman. You ever hear of him? Yeah. He's a Shaliach, a Tayyid Tzaddik in Philadelphia. And this doctor is a top-notch, he's talking about 5 figures, probably minimum, to get treatment, to have a child. And after the Maisa in Mumbai, 15 years ago, whenever it was, he said to the Shaliach, I want you to find me 6 people were killed. I want you to find me 6 shluchim who are childless. And I treat them pro bono. I'll treat them free. And within a couple of years, 6 kids were born. And that's watching 700 WhatsApps and all the news and the fake news and everything that's happening and what shouldn't happen, this, that, humanitarian. If we persuade anybody who, I'm not saying someone should, it's not a lot out of you, it's a 5 minutes out of the person's comfort zone. I'm not talking about a guy who says, you're going to have 2 kids, have 4. That's already out of the comfort zone, a lot. 1, to see that children should be born as a result, or encourage shidduchim, encourage people to get married earlier, and to have less break between engagement and a marriage, whatever it is. I heard from Jonathan Sachs, he was a very, very close friend. He was speaking about demographic, marrying out, assimilation. He said, forget about assimilation, forget about marrying out. He said 150 years ago, people got married at age 20 and had kids right away. And nowadays, you're lucky if they get married or have kids at 30. So he said, 150 years ago, in 60 years, there were 3 generations. And today, there's only 2. He said, we lost a generation. Just in the timing. Besides the fact that the younger you have the kids, the better you're able to be a younger parent to them. Sometimes this comes up in conversations, in polite conversation. And it's just something that to me, this event, I'm in this very big, deep state of trauma. I'm aware of it. Because I was born before the Holocaust, but I was a little kid. But for anything that I consciously knew about, and there was a lot of things, wars, Korean wars, and Suez, and the 6-Day War, and the Yom Kippur War, and all these little summer all these skirmishes that there were in the last 25 years, in Gaza and all these places. But this was different. Even if it was just one day, it was different. This was different. This was a pogrom, like the old-fashioned pogroms, like the Holocaust. This was Pashut, killing Jews because they're Jews. I saw today a clip. I always make a halot. I'm not going to look at them.
I thought when you trade, you're
It's a
done.
waste of time. I could write you the script, but it was a thing of a real intellectual. It sounded like an Australian accent. A fanatical Muslim. He really believes. He's a messianic, and he was talking about the Neturah Karta. And he said, don't let them fool you. He says, the only reason that they're against Israel because they're waiting for Mashiach. And then when Mashiach comes, they're going to fight against you. So kill them now. Basically, that's basically what he said. It's kill Jews. With torches, with degrading. It was like fellow chazak. And the only answer to that is more mitzvahs, more shtochim in Eretz Yisrael, but first and foremost, more talking. That's in your face, the real in your face. More than the march to Washington, unless it helps to this type of thing. I'm sure they put on tefillin with thousands of people. Were they right here in Washington?
There were some people here.
What?
There were some of them.
I saw somebody sent me a family. I saw some relatives there.
Yanko, yeah.
That was not a party political broadcast. That was Poshet, a mitzvah. Chaim.
Some water?
But that's the mush. That was the mush. I'll tell you one more story. I heard this in the car coming back from the Oil Friday from a guy called Farbrengen. Anybody ever hear of him?
Yeah.
Who didn't hear of him? Such a sweet, beautiful guy. A Chassidish nefesh. And I know him as a little kid. I remember his father and his sister. I remember as a boy. And he was Mekushnet to the Rebbe. He went to Eitz Chaim Yeshiva. He went to Eitz Chaim Yeshiva in London 55 years ago, 60 years ago. And he wanted to come to Lubavitch, and the Rebbe told him not yet. And he had incredible kiruva from the Rebbe. Incredible hadracha. So he told me this week a story that he was in Yechidus, and in the course of the Yechidus, the Rebbe said to him, you should be moishif and limud Chassidus. You should learn more Chassidus. So at the end, and then there was the whole Yechidus. He asked questions like he's learning in a Litvish yeshiva, and on Yutas Kislev they say Tachnan. What should he do? That's like one of the kind of questions he would ask. I don't know if it's the same Yechidus. But at the end of the whole Yechidus, he didn't interrupt the Rebbe in the middle. At the end, he said to the Rebbe, he said to learn extra Chassidus, can you be more explicit, more detailed? What do you want me to do? So the Rebbe said, I'm talking about Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos, when there's Kriyas HaTorah, to learn Chassidus those days. And really, in Hayom Yom, there is a thing. It says, Tmimim, every day. And Stam Chassidim, Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos. And then the Rebbe said, Sunday night, Rabbi Sudak gives a shir in Lubavitch House in Stamford Hill. His yeshiva was in Golders Green. Go to that shir. That counts as Monday. And Thursday, he says, learn V'yadaita Moskva of the Rebbe Rashab. That's about Yichud HaOlam. It's a fantastic, fantastic, powerful maimah. And learn that with Rabbi Hertz, Shlita, of the yeshiva. And Shabbos, learn with Heschel Gorman. He cooks in Tanya, learn Tanya with him. So I remember this, even though I heard 100 stories since then, since this Friday, because I'm going to hopefully tell it over to the kids in my school, because it shows you a lot of things. So even the story just at face value. But it to me, it tells that, number one, how the Rebbe was switched on to the detail that Rabbi Suda is giving a shiur on Sunday night in the Lubavitch house. There were dozens of shiurim in the Lubavitch house. They knew exactly who to go to and what's happening. And the second thing is the Rebbe's a personalized interest in an individual teenage boy. And Kolshkein, any one of us. And Befrat that it's after Gimel Talmud. So there's no limit. The Kud of the Rebbe is not just a friend. It's a Rebbe. And that's accessible today. So L'chaim, Rebbe shall helfen, shall sein, Yidan Notzach.
No Telsner?
All right.
Huh?
Time to call it in there.
Very much appreciated. Thank you. Can you describe
The what?
the room of the Yechidus? Like how you felt and what you did?
I'm more than one of voice there. I was in Yechidus 29 times.
Wow.
Over a period of... That's besides times... I had other... Someone first, it doesn't count the Yechidus clothes. And it doesn't count when they never stopped me and my wife in the hall once and hold discussion for 5-10 minutes.
Always a 770?
Yeah. No 770. It was... This time when he said over his over... when we arrived about a week before that, and he came in the evening, he looked at me, he saw my wife, and he told me my princess got blue. Like clothes over. And he spoke about what happened. Then when we went to that Yechidus, everything said Shalom Aleichem Nochavam. And then he read it told me Shalom Aleichem. Yeah. And he wanted to know who's taking her Shabbos group? She used to have girls. She had 2 little kids under the age of 1, under the age of 2. They never asked. But she used to have girls come to the house on Shabbos afternoon. They ever said, who's taking them this week? Somewhere in a duch somewhere. Not an official motion. 2 or 3, 4 girls would come. To bang with them, sing with them. Lubavitch girls.
You felt scared going into it?
Yeah. I always felt very, not scared of scared. What are you scared of? You're not going to smack him. But it's like years ago. Years ago. My first Yechidus, my knee was literally shaking. Literally. Before I was in Lubavitch.
Didn't the Rebbe give you a hand to give you a chair or something?
My son, he gave me.
Son, right, yes.
Yes, sir. That wasn't Yechidus, that was Yechidus was something you prepared for. And the experience was possibly proportional to preparation. The more you prepare, the more you can get on. But really, you know, the Yonim that in terms of Cambridge, you know, are available today about 100 times stronger. Just because of and the living Torah, I would stay in 77 after the year is over. Even when I was married, I asked my wife to push to come home at 11, 12 o'clock at night. I didn't want to go home before people finished the Chiddush. You can hear good stories. Now those kind of stories, when I would get 2, 3 stories a year, you can get them in a month. The information is much, much more available than ever was.
She made fun of me. Just buy a house and start your business. You find a way that they can't take a house.
You came with the Moshe Feller?
You what?
You came with Moshe Feller?
Moshe was my brother-in-law. His late wife was my sister.
Oh, yeah.
I was his shotgun.
Oh, yeah?
Well, it wasn't my idea. It was Yosef Zalman's idea, but I'm the one that spoke to it.
Mendel.
What?
Mendel, right?
Mendel?
Mendel, her name was.
Yeah. You remember? You know her?
Oh, my uncle's Mendel Feller.
Oh.
My wife's uncle.
What?
My wife's uncle's Mendel Feller. Springer from Milano.
Moshe was not him, I wouldn't be here. I went 2 years like I said, but I only went to Camp Akudis, which is the first time I met Megari and Balshamtis and went to a Farbrengen only went to Camp Akudis because my mother had a big, large discovery from Moshe was around.
Really?
I'm from Williamsburg.
He also lived in Williamsburg.
What?
He also lived in Williamsburg.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. So we never knew him. He wasn't that big a guy. And the following year, he made his own camp. My mother didn't send me camp to do Christmas camp. She sent the Christmas was on. He's making every camp. Go to that camp. That's when we went to Gandhi's home. Me and my 2 younger brothers.
Moshe's older brother. You know his older brother?
Who?
Moshe's older brother.
Yeah, sure. You know his birthday, right? Yeah, listen. That's what I remember. Zoltan was his Hungarian name. His English name was Zoltan.
Moshe was
I remember Moshe's father, and mother. And later we were barbecue. We were a real timber. Shishes, mayonnaise and stuff. They were very, very big Mr. Rebels. They knew the city up in Vienna. And the soft school. We had like Chatzke Friedman. There was a group we used to meet twice a year. And very often it was in real Timber's sukkah or house. He was crippled.
Who was that
younger classes. Yaakov Shvei was a brother. Evening Seder, Gemara Legilson. Isaac Shvei was still a brother when I got there. I'm going to my school tomorrow. I'm going tomorrow. I'm going here for Shabbaton with the base time Muslim seminary for Shabbat. I'm going to do the girls for Shabbos. But Thursday night I'm supposed to come and get the
So what years did you learn the same seminary?
That's Bacha, Chabbeis, Chav Gimel, and then in Koilu from the Aleph to Chav.
Chav Gimel is a lot of famous Farbrengen. Chav Gimel is a lot of famous Farbrengen.
Chav Gimel.
No, I'm saying Rosh Hashanah. Yibchar Lanu, right?